In this video, we'll be reviewing the concepts from Unit 6 for Latin for Americans. This unit covers substantives. Substantives are words that can be used as nouns. The most common that we see are pronouns. So pronouns operate in the place of nouns like I, you, we, etc. We've also talked about infinitives because we've used infinitives as subjects and objects. So to yield is unpleasant, to yield is an infinitive acting as a noun, and we ought to build is acting like the object of the verb ought. And now this is a new one, is adjective. So in Latin, adjectives can just be used as a noun. You don't have to write it. So miser can just mean the unhappy, or the unhappy man is implied. Aeque, which would be the just women, or just the just. Multum is much, or much of a thing, and multa could be many things. And so the things, man and woman, are all implied. And the pronoun that you use, or the noun that you use, will come from the genitive, or from the gender and the number. Personal pronouns refer to the first and second person. These are substantives that we've learned before. And so we can talk about ego, which is I, nos, which is we, tu, which is you singular, and vos, which is you plural. The personal pronouns decline as follows. Ego goes ego, ego, mei, mihi, me, and then the plural is we, nos, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis, and then you is tu, tui, tibi, te, also vos, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. This unit also covers possessive adjectives. Possessive adjectives are meus, which is mine, nostr, which is our, tuus, which is your singular, and vester, which is your plural. These are just like any other adjective, and they must agree in case, number, and gender. Both the meus and tuus is us, a, and noster and vester is just ar, a, and the masculine declines like an er, second declension. Now we're going to learn two new tenses, the past perfect, or also known as the pluperfect, or the future perfect. The past perfect active is formed by taking the third principal part without the I and the imperfect of sum. So notice here on this column, it's the third principal part of pono, posui, with no I, and then I'll add the imperfect of sum, eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. So I go down. And I put them together and I get posu eram, posu eras, posu erant, posu eramus, posu eratus, posu erant. The future perfect active is formed very similarly. You take the third principal part without the I, so again I have posu, 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 and then I use the future of sum, ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, and instead of erunt, I use erint, because if I use erunt, I'd confuse it with the perfect tense. And so I get posu ero, posu eris, posu erit, posu erimus, posu eritus, and posu erint. So a little review of principal parts. So you form the last principal part by usually adding a ts or sus to the stem for the regular ones. Here, these are all first conjugation verbs, and the principal parts for all these will be are, awi, and atus, because these are regular first conjugation verbs. So the perfect passive participle. So a participle is a form of a verb which is used as an adjective. So a participle is an adjective. And so when we translate this in English, the participle usually ends in ed, like loved, carried, beaten, or heard. The perfect passive participle in Latin comes from the fourth principal part. So that would be amatus aum, or portatus, or auditus. The perfect passive participle is an adjective, so it must agree with the noun it modifies in case, number, and gender. The perfect passive participle declines like an adjective from the first, second declension, like bonus aum. Now we're going to learn the perfect passive tenses. So the perfect passive tenses are all formed using the fourth principal part which is the perfect passive participle, and a form of sum as a helping verb. So the perfect passive tense uses the fourth principal part, the perfect passive participle, us, and this will agree with the gender and number of the subject. So notice this is singular. In a masculine subject, you'd use us, feminine, and a neuter, and then you have a form of sum, es, est, and then in the plural, so notice how this becomes portati, aea, because again, this is for plural subjects. I would be for masculine, ae would be for feminine, a would be for neuters, and so it's sumus, estis, sunt. And remember, the perfect is regular for all conjugations, regular and irregular. The past perfect passive tense is formed in a similar fashion. You take the fourth principal part, the perfect passive participle, us, again, it will change for number and gender of the subject, but instead of the present form of sum, you use the imperfect form. And so it's doctus eram, eras, erat, and in the plural again, notice it goes to I, a, and then eramus, eratus, erant. The future perfect passive tense forms the same way. Again, taking the fourth principal part, us, or I, a, depending on the number and gender of the subject, and then we'll use the future form of sum, ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, erunt. Now we'll learn how to form the present passive infinitive. This will vary depending on whether the verb is first, second, fourth conjugation, or third IO. For verbs in the first, second, and fourth, you drop the E from the infinitive and you just simply add an I to be praised. For verbs of the third IO and third, you drop away the whole ERE and add an I to be taken. For the first, second, and fourth conjugations, first, second, and fourth, notice how one letter drops away, the E, and then I add an I to form the infinitives. For the third IO, 3 letters drop away. So third IO, 3 letters. The whole ERE drops away, and then you just add the I afterwards. Certain verbs like teach, order, wish, forbid, force, also love, can have an object infinitive. That means it will take an infinitive as its object. So he orders the enemies to approach. Right here, to approach is the object of order. And then he taught us to tell. To tell would be the infinitive or the object of taught. Here's a couple other examples. I ordered the men to go away. You do not want me to work. They taught you to love. All infinitives in Latin used as objects. Now a review of the nouns. The only thing that's really to notice here is libri would be aurum masculine. It's a plural noun meaning children. And now we have our pronouns, ego, I, nos, we, is, ea, id, which is he, she, it, to, you singular, vos, you plural, and then our adjectives. Again, nothing special here. For integer, the E goes away when it goes to but in miser, the E will stay. So for our verbs, obsum and odsum are basically forms of sum with ob or odd in front of it. Obsum means absent away, like absent, and odsum means present or near. And then let's see if we can find our second conjugation ones. Those are our eos. So remanio, retenio, removio are all second conjugations. Now I'll look for my fourth to see if I can find anything that's in the fourth. And in this list there is nothing from the fourth, so the rest of the ios will be third io, cupio, interficio, recipio, and sescipio are all third io. And notice these cipios will have the similar parts of capio. And then for my O's, I'll see which ones are first. So that'd be dubito. Dubito would be first. And, oops, I missed. Ubio is also second. And then these rest of these guys right here would be third. Omito, dimito, disceto, educo, nosco, proceto, produco, propono, and redigo. And lastly, we have our pronouns and prepositions and adverbs. Etiam, also, yam, already or now, olum, once upon a time, tamen, nevertheless, ubi, when or where, per is through plus the accusative, pro is for on behalf of plus the ablative, sine is the opposite of cum, it's without, and sub can be with the accusative or the ablative. When it's involved with motion, use the accusative, like I dove under the bench. If it's involved with placement, like I sit under the tree, then you'd use the ablative.